USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. For each week, we talk with a coach, player, administrator, or journalist about college hockey. This podcast is sponsored by DCU Digital Federal Credit Union. What will DCU mean to you? Find out today by visiting dcu.org. Membership required. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. Undefeated right now to start the season is the Penn State Nittany Lions.
Joining us now on USCHO Spotlight, the head coach of Penn State Nittany Lions. That's Guy Gadowsky. Guy, I was just kind of pulling up your resume. This is 11 seasons you've been at Penn State. It doesn't feel that long ago that this program was just in its infancy, and now year 11. Welcome to the show. It's great to have you, and good things going on right now in Happy Valley.
I appreciate bringing on. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's been as you say, it's been. It still feels new, and maybe COVID had a reset. Maybe that's why. But good things are going on. But look, it's early. We all know how the college hockey season, how long it is, and how many peaks and valleys there are. So right now, we're just grinding.
Your team right now, as you said, it is early, but 8-0, very solid start to the season. But I look at the USCHO poll, and not every coach loves polls. I don't know how you stand on it, but the poll itself, when I take a look at it, you guys got votes in the top 3 and you got votes in the bottom of the top 20. It does seem that nobody has a good feel for how this Penn State team is. What are your thoughts on this team right now as you sit there and realize that you've won the first 8?
No, I think that's fair, actually. And always because of non-conference at the start, I think it's hard to pinpoint anybody really, and we're right in that mix. So I think that's a fair assessment. I think we're looking forward to this weekend. Obviously, playing the team that's now ranked number 1 should give us an idea of where we stand. But you can say that every weekend. We just played Wisconsin, who went on the road the weekend before and swept Duluth on the road. So every weekend, I think you can say, oh, this will give us a little more information, and I'm sure we're going to be saying that well into the season.
You mentioned non-conference. In the Big Ten, you have a good number of non-conference games to build a schedule around. How do you approach it? I know that every coach has in the back of their head, what do I need to do if I don't win my conference tournament to get into an NCAA tournament? And a lot of that is through the non-conference schedule. But how do you approach non-conference scheduling?
Yeah, sure. But there's other factors too. So one of the factors that we have at Penn State is we sell out. We do a really good job, and it's a source of revenue. And that's something that's directed regardless of what my philosophy is. We have to make sure that we keep that in mind for sure. Another one is geographically is something that I think we keep in mind. And then another, I guess, specific to our situation is we don't have to go looking to improve the strength of schedule. Playing in the Big Ten at the end of the year, whether you like it or not, you're going to be near the top. And so, we built with those 3 factors in mind. We take what's available. And also, I guess another factor is people say, well, why don't you just play them? Well, they might not be available then. Like, it's not that easy. You're doing scheduling many years in advance. And so sometimes people say, well, why did you play them? Because they're too high or too low or whatever. And you say, well, 3 years ago, they're right where you wanted them to be. So there's a lot of factors that go into it.
I want to get into a few of your players right now. We'll talk maybe a little bit about the transfer portal later, but you've used that a little bit. You're number 1 scorer right now, Tur Linden, a transfer. But you have, as I was going through the numbers, I look at 17 different players have scored a goal right now, and you're only 8 games into your season. I know your team has always been known for the ability to shoot the puck and play, have the offensive side covered, but that's real depth offensively.
Well, that is, we always hope for that. The way we play, we feel that that's a big part. If we're going to be successful, we haven't been able to do that with a one-trick pony, basically having just one line that leads us and supporting cast. We have to score by committee, and we do try to get as balanced scoring and as many lines, production from as many lines as possible. So we're very happy to see that. Hopefully that's something that continue on the rest of the season. But yeah, that's something that we're very comfortable with.
Talk to me about the back end, 2 goaltenders and Liam Soulier and Noah Grannon, who have both gotten some action so far. like about the competition that you have in your locker room every day for that position?
Well, what we really like about it is the way that Liam Solier, came to be the starting goaltender, because he was here for 2 years and played behind a veteran. And with him, he was just so positive, handled himself so well, really looked forward and got everything out of his experience, didn't complain that he didn't have enough experiences. And the way he handled himself as a teammate, I think, was really the most important thing, that when he did get those opportunities, he took advantage of them. And going into last year, we played our best hockey at the end of the year, and he coincidentally won the starting spot during that run. And basically he's continued where he left off. But the reason he was in that situation is not only how he performed, but more so the type of teammate he was.
There's always a lot of controversy among writers and fans about which league is the best one in college hockey. I made the case earlier this week that the Big Ten is probably the best league this year. You're likely to see 3 or 4 teams in the NCAA tournament, even 5 teams are a possibility. Do you think the Big Ten is the top league right now in college hockey?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I certainly can make that argument. I haven't coached in the NCHC, so maybe they certainly can make an argument as well. But I think that if you look at, the percentage of teams that make the NCAA tournament, at least since Notre Dame joined our league, I think we have the highest percentage. So I think you can make an argument that we are very strong. And I think this year, if it's early, so anything can happen, but so far it looks like comparatively we have another really strong year. And look, the good thing about college hockey though is I think every conference can make an argument about how their depth is and how good they are, and I agree with that. I think the parity in college hockey right now is way more than we've seen. I've been around here, 20 plus years, and I can tell you that it's absolutely changed. When you say anybody can beat anybody, I mean, that is an absolute reality. So yes, I think Big Ten is right near the top, but I also think there's many conferences and within that conference, several teams that can also make that argument.
You mentioned about the parity in college hockey. The game really has evolved over the last few years, and perhaps everybody's playing more of a style that's kind of a style you've liked, where it's a little bit more wide open and fast. What do you think about the kind of the pace and the state of the game right now?
Well, I think there's, I agree with you. And I think part of that is there just seems to be so many more excellent hockey players wanting to come to college hockey. I mean, like I said, 20 plus years ago, there's a portion of Canada, there was Mass, Minnesota, Michigan, obviously, and sprinkled around. And now you see so many players coming from all the states that have been really successful in growing hockey. And there's great players from Florida, California, Illinois, Vegas. I mean, Nevada, you can name it, as well as all across Canada, as well as many countries in Europe. And a lot of them are coming to college hockey. And so you have so much more to choose from, that I think the skill level from top to bottom is much higher. And I think that's a big factor for what you just mentioned.
More with Guy Gadowsky in a moment. USCHO Spotlight is sponsored by DCU Digital Federal Credit Union. Visit dcu.org.
Know how people say life happens? Well, for me, life was happening, and I needed a new truck. I didn't have time to shop around for a good loan, so I got one from the dealer, higher interest and all. Month after month, those payments were squeezing me. So I went to DCU. They refinanced my loan and helped lower my rate, which lowered my payments. These days, I have more money in my pocket for whatever life throws at me. What will DCU mean to you? Insured by NCUA. Membership required. Visit dcu.org.
We're back with Penn State head coach Guy Gadowsky. Unlike some programs, it seems that you've cast a pretty wide net regionally, and you've got players coming from the U.S. and across Canada. Is that a deliberate thing, or is it just a case of you have so many players that are looking to play at a high-level program that you kind of have a choice?
Well, I think, one of Terry Pegula's visions when he first started this was to really increase the quality of hockey within the Center County. Great hockey on either end of the state. But I think that as this goes on longer and longer, I think we're going to have more players right in our initial footprint. We've always wanted to get the very best players in our footprint, but for where we are right now, we've had very successful, great leadership and great student athletes come from different areas of not only the States but Canada and Europe as well. And we certainly, if it works, you don't want to break. If it's not broken, you don't have to fix it.
Jim started out mentioning 11 seasons at Penn State. It's remarkable to me with the atmosphere you have at Pegula Ice Arena, how quickly an atmosphere and tradition has grown around the hockey program in that short amount of time.
Yeah, that's been really fun. I remember the first time that we played initially, I think part of those 11 years, one was as a club program that we coached, and the other was as an independent, and it was still in our old arena. And we were able to, when we first stepped into Pegula Ice Arena, we weren't a very good team, and we were a little immature and finding our way. And so were our great fans. They were awesome, but you could make the analogy that our defensive zone was very disorganized. Well, so was our roar zone. And then when we got better, they got better. And now, my goodness, they are so good. They're so fun. They're so fun to watch and listen to. And really, at Pegula, if you've been here, you know what I mean by feel. Like they just bring an unbelievable feeling, which is just so much fun. And honestly, that's been one of the most fulfilling and actually enjoyable aspects of this ride, is to really witness just how the development of the roar zone and how they've generated an unbelievable atmosphere here in Pegula Ice Arena. They are awesome.
I mentioned off the top, Guy, that we get back to the transfer portal. You've got a spattering of transfers in your program right now. How do you approach it? And having more than 2 decades in this game, do you feel it's working right now for college hockey?
I think it's new. Like, I don't think we can tell you, hey, this is our philosophy and this is what we want to do and this is what works for us yet. It's just too early. And yeah, we have 2 really good ones. We have 3 overall, 2 from last year, which is by no means leading the country at all. There's several programs with a lot more than that. But for us, at least, I think, we did a lot of homework on the individual, not just the player, and anticipated or extrapolated how they would fit in Penn State, not just fit into our hockey team. And that has seemed to work, because the 2 guys that came this year, Tour Linden, who you already mentioned, and Ashton Calder, have been just great for us as a program, and seem to really be enjoying themselves and enjoying Penn State. And if that's if you can get that every time, hey, we do it all the time. I don't think that's always realistic, but for us, for these 2 guys, it certainly has been the case, and it's been very valuable.
This weekend, your arena will likely be packed twice for a great series against one of the best teams in the country, number 1 team in the country right now, Michigan. I think a lot of people knew, everything about Michigan last year, and after they lost a lot of players, maybe didn't have the expectations. But this is a Michigan team that still is as dangerous as they have been for the last 3-4 years.
And you're absolutely right. And they've done a tremendous job of reloading. And I got to be honest, I'm very impressed with it. And they've had a great start. They deserve the number 1 ranking, not only in terms of results, but I think how they played as well. And it's going to be a great weekend at Pegula. The atmosphere is fantastic anywhere or at any time, but I think this is going to be very special.
And we're going to have scalpers outside with the tickets. I mean, this has to be a pretty tough ticket to get on your campus.
Anytime Big Ten schools play hockey here on campus at Pegula Ice Arena, it's a very tough ticket to get. I think that's one of the things that makes it a great experience here. And yeah, anytime a Big Ten school comes to Penn State, it's a special time, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, a nice start for your team, 8-0 to this point, but this will be a fantastic weekend of hockey in the central of Pennsylvania. Guy Gadowsky, thanks so much for your time. Best of luck this weekend, and obviously the rest of the way. Hope the season turns out well.
I really appreciate that. Thank you very much, guys.
That's Penn State head coach Guy Gadowsky. Jim, Guy's not kidding, and I'm not kidding when I tell you that the atmosphere at Pegula Ice Arena is just crazy. It is loud. It is boisterous. It's fantastic.
I haven't been out there since really their first season as an independent. I believe it was the 13-14 season. And he was right about the way that their fans had to learn the game just as much as his defense had to learn how to play their defensive zone coverage. I think that it continues to get better. And every time I see a game on Big Ten Network that comes from Penn State, I am absolutely in awe of the atmosphere created in that building. I think that is probably in the Big Ten the best atmosphere. There's a few schools in other leagues. I think of Western Michigan. I think of North Dakota, as really creating a pretty special atmosphere every night as well. Even like places like Michigan Tech, some of the smaller buildings that are really tough to play in. If you can pack them in every night, and as he said, these Big Ten opponents, every single game against a Big Ten school is a packed house. I think that you're always that naturally creates it. Then to have some fans that really know the game and understand the game and understand the rivalries that are involved, particularly in the Big Ten, I think that just adds to it.
I enjoyed hearing Guy's explanation about non-conference schedule. Let's face it, he has gotten some criticism, but picking regional opponents like he has makes sense, and certainly no strength of schedule problems within the Big Ten.
I think that has kind of evolved for him. I didn't ask him specifically about it, but it was hard. They do try to put as many of these non-conference games in their own building, and there's a reason for that. They make so much money off of every game that goes on in that building at Pegula. So, and you have, as we just mentioned, created a great atmosphere. But when they go on the road, I think that they've tried to, visit schools that have some sort of a local tie. They've all, when Robert Morris was a program, and I'm sure when they come back next year, they'll be able to continue this. But it seemed they always were playing one another. And I always thought that was a great thing for college hockey, to see the two schools inside the state of Pennsylvania there, kind of right on that corridor of 84, be able to play one another. I know that Canisius played them this year. They gave a couple of games to St. Thomas. That's a great way to grow a program. So I am not critical of the way that any coach makes their non-conference schedule. It's usually for their own benefit. And as he said, you're not trying to build a schedule just for strength of schedule, because when you're in the Big Ten, that's taken care of just playing those games and hopefully winning some of those games in your conference. That will get you to an NCAA tournament. The rest, it's more about, picking particular opponents. And I think there's probably reasoning for every single one of the matchups that he brings in.
Guy Gadowsky grew up in Edmonton and was a fan of the Oilers, who were in their heyday when he was a kid. And that's been reflected in the style of play he likes to have his teams play. Michigan's also wide open. These are going to be, we think, some high-scoring games this weekend, right?
We have another podcast, USCHO Edge, where we talk about over-unders and stuff like that. And I have not seen one come out from any sports books right now, but I would set it at 8.5 at least. This is a series that I could see both games being 6-5. Wide open hockey. The fact that both teams do have good back ends and good goaltending, I don't want to take away from that. But this is a track meet. And I've said it, basically since year one of watching Guy Gadowsky coach at Penn State, that, they will shoot from the popcorn stand. There's not a bad shot. There's not a shot that Penn State doesn't like in hockey. And getting them through to the net is what it's all about. You might allow the goaltender to get comfortable, but you're also playing the law of averages. If you're putting 50 shots on a game, one or two of those are going to sneak in. And in Penn State's case, it's more like 4 or 5. Right now they're right with Michigan for the top 2 scoring teams in the country. I think that either one of these teams could finish this season, maybe even both of them, above 5 goals a game, which you don't see that often in college hockey. That's a real true, run and gun offensive style.
Well, it should be great hockey this weekend. And what's on tap for Penn State after hosting Michigan? They get to travel to Minnesota.
Not an easy schedule. And I think that if anybody, and I thought that Guy Gadowsky was very honest the way he answered the question when I mentioned the poll voting and the fact that they're, an 8-0 team still kind of in the middle of the top 20. But you're going to learn a lot about this team. If they come through this, two weekend series with the 3-1 record, or maybe it's 2-2, but you got some points in overtime one night and you feel like you did some good things. So you're getting, 67% of a win or 33% of a loss, whatever it might be. I think that you can see people really starting to give credibility to Penn State if they have some success over the next 2 weekends. This is a big test for them, though.
Well, we'll be watching with interest. And that'll wrap up this edition of USCHO Spotlight, sponsored by DCU Digital Federal Credit Union. Visit dcu.org. You can find our podcast at uscho.com/podcast or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and this has been USCHO Spotlight.